Welcome to Pillow Talk Dreams, where every night becomes a story and every story leads you to peace. If you love calm voices, gentle journeys, and stories that help you drift into dreams, then don't forget to subscribe and let your nights be a little softer. Now close your eyes and let the story begin. Tonight, let the world grow quiet around you. You've had long days full of noise, full of movement, but right now, you don't have to chase anything. This is your time to rest. Close your eyes and imagine a hidden sanctuary deep within the forest, a place where rain falls endlessly, soft and warm against the earth. A private spa, surrounded by eucalyptus trees and candlelight. Here, time moves slower, your thoughts drift like clouds, and peace feels close enough to touch. This is the story of Amara, a woman who travels to this secret place to find rest, but instead discovers something deeper, the kind of calm that changes the heart forever. So take a deep breath, let the rain guide you into stillness, and allow me to take you there to the private spa sanctuary. A rainy night, a quiet heart, and the peace you've been searching for. The rain had been falling since dusk, soft, silvery threads weaving their quiet rhythm against the windows of the secluded spa that stood at the edge of the valley. The world outside seemed to blur into shades of gray and blue, a watercolor painting melting in slow motion. Inside, everything was warmth. The air shimmered faintly with the scent of eucalyptus and sandalwood. Candles glowed along the hallways, their flames steady despite the gentle breeze from the open skylight above the central pool. It was a place designed for peace, a hidden retreat known only to those who needed to disappear for a while. Amara arrived just as the rain began to deepen into a steady, soothing hum. Her umbrella dripped quietly by the door as she handed it to the attendant. Her hair was slightly damp, small strands clinging to her cheeks, and her eyes carried that distant look of someone who had been walking through more than just rain. The receptionist smiled softly, her voice almost a whisper. "Welcome back, Miss Amara. Your private sanctuary is ready." Amara nodded, exhaling as if she'd been holding her breath all day. She hadn't planned to return to the spa tonight. Work had drained her, and the city's noise had followed her like a storm cloud. But something about the rain had called her here, the same way it always did when her thoughts became too heavy to hold. She slipped off her shoes, feeling the warmth of the polished wood beneath her feet, and followed the faint sound of water to the private wing. The private spa sanctuary, as it was called, was tucked away behind a curved glass wall overlooking the forest. The rain on the leaves outside was like a lullaby, and the glow of amber light washed over everything with a golden calm. As she entered her suite, she paused. There was someone already inside. At first, she thought it was a mistake, a tall figure standing near the indoor hot spring, looking out through the glass toward the rain. The man turned slowly, his expression startled, then softened when he recognized her. Amara, her breath caught. Elias. For a moment, the rain filled the silence between them. It had been months since she'd last seen him. They had met here in this very sanctuary during a wellness retreat years ago. Back then, the spa had been full of quiet laughter and shared conversations over cups of herbal tea. They'd spent rainy evenings like this one, talking about dreams and futures that had never quite unfolded. And now somehow fate, or perhaps the rain, had brought them both here again. "I didn't know you still came here," Elias said softly, his voice deep but gentle, like the rumble of thunder far away. "I didn't, not for a while," Amara replied. "Tonight just felt like I needed to." He smiled faintly. "Same reason I'm here. They both laughed quietly, though the sound carried more nostalgia than joy. The attendant appeared at the door, slightly flustered. "I'm terribly sorry, there's been a booking overlap. The system placed you both in the same suite." Amara shook her head, a small smile forming. "It's all right. We know each other." Elias met her gaze, warmth flickering behind his eyes. "If you don't mind sharing, that is." She hesitated, then nodded. "No, I don't mind." The attendant bowed apologetically and left, closing the door behind them. The rain grew heavier, drumming gently on the roof as if encouraging them to stay quiet. The spa lights dimmed automatically, casting the room in soft amber shadows. Elias poured water into a ceramic cup and handed it to her. "Still lemon and mint," she smiled at the memory. "You remember." "How could I forget?" he said, settling beside her near the edge of the thermal pool. Steam rose between them, carrying the scent of jasmine and rain. For a while, neither of them spoke. The world outside disappeared. The only sounds were the rain, the slow ripple of water, and the faint hum of relaxation music from hidden speakers. Amara let her shoulders loosen, her breath deepening with every minute. "It's strange," she murmured, "how peace can feel so familiar, even after all this time." Elias looked at her through the dim light. "Maybe peace remembers us when we forget ourselves." She turned to him, eyes soft. "You always said things like that." He chuckled, leaning back against the smooth tiles. "Maybe the rain brings it out of me." Lightning flashed faintly beyond the fogged glass, a distant shimmer of silver light. The thunder followed several seconds later, low and unhurried. They sat in silence again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that healed. Later, Amara slipped into the pool, letting the warmth wrap around her. The water caressed her skin like silk, and she closed her eyes, listening to the rhythm of the rain above. The droplets against the glass roof made a sound that was halfway between music and memory. Elias joined her a moment later, the water rippling softly between them. "You ever think," he said, "that maybe we find peace only when the world slows down enough to listen?" She opened her eyes, watching the rain trace silver rivers across the glass. "Maybe that's why I come here. The city never listens. But the rain does," he smiled. "Then let's listen with it." The two of them sat quietly, side by side, eyes closed as the storm whispered overhead. Time slipped away. The candles burned lower and the scent of lavender filled the air. Somewhere outside, the wind moved through the trees, carrying the smell of wet earth and blooming night flowers. Amara felt her heart settle. The tension that had clung to her all week slowly unraveled, dissolving into the warmth around her. She didn't need to think about tomorrow, or the past, or what might come after this night. All she needed was this: the steady rain, the quiet presence beside her, and the sanctuary that seemed to breathe in rhythm with her own heart. When she finally spoke again, her voice was a whisper. "Do you ever wish you could stay in moments like this forever?" Elias opened his eyes and looked at her. "I used to think forever was a place. Now I think it's just a feeling. And maybe this is it." She smiled faintly, eyes glistening with the reflection of candlelight. "A rainy forever," he nodded. "A peaceful one." The rain softened as if agreeing. They stayed there long after the clock stopped meaning anything. The world outside faded into mist and night, and inside the private spa sanctuary, two souls found a quiet place to rest, together, yet weightless, like dreams carried by rain. The rain did not stop through the night. It fell in endless silver threads, each droplet catching the faint light of the spa before slipping down the glass and vanishing into the darkness beyond. Inside the sanctuary, the world remained still, soft, warm, breathing in rhythm with the rain. Amara woke early, not from noise or restlessness, but from the quiet itself. It was a silence that came after deep sleep, the kind that almost hums in the air. She sat up slowly, her robe brushing against the sheets, the scent of jasmine oil still lingering on her skin. Across the room, Elias was already awake, sitting cross-legged near the edge of the thermal pool. Steam drifted around him like mist in a forest. His eyes were closed, his breathing slow. For a moment, she just watched him. There was something grounding about the way he sat still, calm, almost as if he belonged to the silence itself. When he opened his eyes, he smiled softly. "Good morning." She returned the smile. "Morning. You meditate this early now." "Sometimes," he said, stretching his arms lazily. "Rain helps me focus, makes everything else feel small." Amara walked over to the window, drawing her fingertips along the fogged glass. Beyond it, the forest glistened, wet and alive. Every leaf shimmered under the drizzle, and far off, the stream that cut through the valley murmured like a sleeping song. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Elias joined her, his reflection faint beside hers in the glass. "It always was, we just forget to notice." She turned to him. "You sound different, calmer." "I had to be," he said. "Life doesn't slow down for anyone, so I had to learn how to slow myself." There was a weight behind his words, something unspoken. She could feel it but didn't ask, not yet. The morning was too gentle to disturb. They spent the next hour in quiet rituals of calm. Herbal tea steeped slowly in small clay pots, filling the room with the scent of honey and mint. Soft music drifted from hidden speakers, a composition of flute and water sounds, blending seamlessly with the rain outside. Amara sat by the window with her cup, her mind wandering. She had spent so many nights chasing deadlines and expectations, her world reduced to glowing screens and the constant pressure to be more, do more, become more. But here none of that existed. Here there was only warmth and breath and rain. Elias spoke suddenly, his voice low. "You used to draw, didn't you?" She blinked, surprised. "You remember that?" "Of course," he said with a soft laugh. "You used to sit by the pool sketching the reflections, said it helped you hear what silence looks like. I never forgot that." Amara smiled, looking down at her tea. "I stopped a long time ago. There wasn't time anymore." "There's always time," he said gently, "just not always priority." His words settled in her like the quiet drop of rainwater into a pool, small but rippling outward. Later that day, the spa attendants delivered fresh robes and a small note. In elegant handwriting, it read, "For guests of the private sanctuary, a guided sound bath session begins at noon in the Harmony Chamber." Amara raised an eyebrow. "A sound bath, have you ever done one?" Elias grinned. "Once. It's like being inside music while the rain sings outside." She laughed softly. "That sounds poetic." "It is. You'll see." The Harmony Chamber was circular, lined with curved panels of smooth wood that glowed faintly under hidden lights. In the center was a shallow pool surrounded by candles. The air shimmered with soft vibrations, singing bowls, wind chimes, and faint gong tones. They lay on soft mats side by side as the therapist began the session, moving gently around them, striking the bowls so their sound rippled through the air and water. Amara closed her eyes. The tones seemed to move inside her, deep and resonant, echoing in places she didn't know sound could reach. Outside, the rain began again, softer now, almost like a whisper between breaths. The layers of sound, the bowls, the rain, the faint music, merged into something beyond hearing. For a moment, she forgot where she was. She drifted, weightless, somewhere between waking and dreaming. When the final note faded, she opened her eyes. Elias was looking at her, not staring but seeing her, the way one might look at a piece of art they'd missed for years. "What?" she asked, smiling faintly. He hesitated, then said quietly, "You look peaceful." I feel peaceful. That's rare, he said softly. She nodded. It is. The silence after that was rich, not awkward, but full of understanding. That evening, as twilight returned and the rain picked up again, they shared dinner in the spa's private garden lounge. Lanterns hung from the ceiling like tiny moons, their reflections dancing on the wet stone floor. The meal was light: grilled vegetables, jasmine rice, and tea brewed with rose petals. Amara leaned back, listening to the rhythm of droplets falling on leaves. You ever think about that first time we met here? She asked. He smiled. Of course. You were sketching the koi pond and I spilled tea on your notebook. She laughed, remembering. You were so embarrassed. I still am, he said, grinning. But I'm glad I did, otherwise you might never have talked to me. Maybe the rain planned it, she teased. Maybe, he said, eyes softening. Rain seems to like us. The thunder rolled distantly, and for a moment neither spoke. The air between them felt charged, but not with tension, with warmth. Amara sipped her tea. I used to think the rain was lonely, like it fell because it had nowhere else to go. Elias tilted his head. And now, she thought for a moment, watching the droplets slide down the glass. Now I think it falls because it wants to remind the earth how to feel again. He smiled quietly. That's beautiful. You taught me to listen to it, she said softly. I just reminded you of what you already knew, he replied. The night grew deeper. The storm became their soundtrack, steady, patient, eternal. Later, as they walked the quiet hallways back to their suite, Amara paused near a window that overlooked the valley. The mist was thick now, glowing faintly under the lanterns. Elias, she said suddenly, why did you come back here tonight? Really? He stopped beside her, his reflection flickering faintly in the glass. For a long moment he didn't answer. Then he said quietly, I came because I lost my calm. The city, the people, the constant noise, it all started feeling empty. I thought if I came back here, maybe I'd remember who I was before I got lost in it all. She turned to him, her eyes soft. And did you? He smiled faintly. Not yet, but I think I'm starting to. Amara looked back out at the rain, her heart steady. Then maybe that's why we both came back. He nodded. Maybe peace called us home. The rain intensified, washing the glass in silver streaks. The sound filled the space between them until words were no longer needed. They stood there, side by side, watching the storm breathe. And somewhere beneath the endless rain, something unspoken stirred. A quiet connection rekindled not by passion, but by stillness. When they finally returned to their suite, Amara lit a single candle. The soft light painted gold across the walls and shimmered over the water. Elias sat on the edge of the pool again, trailing his fingers in the water. You ever notice, he said, how rain always sounds different depending on where you are? She tilted her head. What do you mean? In the city it sounds like hurry. On glass it sounds like memory. But here, he smiled faintly, listening. Here it sounds like forgiveness. Amara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the candlelight. Maybe that's what we came here for. Forgiveness? Yes, she said softly. From the noise, from ourselves. The rain fell heavier then, as if agreeing once more. And in that sound, something gentle unfolded, unspoken, healing, infinite. The stillness between raindrops mourning came quietly, as though the world had decided to keep sleeping. The rain had softened to a fine mist that clung to the leaves, glimmering faintly in the pale dawn light. The forest outside the spa looked half dreaming, gray, green, and silver all at once. Inside the private sanctuary, Amara stirred awake to the faint sound of wind chimes. The notes floated gently through the air, mingling with the scent of rosemary oil and warm cedar wood. Elias was standing near the balcony doors, barefoot, his robe loose at the collar. He was watching the rain trace slow patterns across the glass, his reflection layered over the drifting clouds outside. Amara's voice was soft, still heavy with sleep. "You've been up long," he turned slightly, smiling. "Not long. The rain woke me. It sounded different this morning, lighter, like it's tired from singing all night." She smiled faintly. "Even rain needs rest," he chuckled. "Maybe we're the same." Amara sat up and drew her knees close, feeling the warmth of the blanket around her. The world beyond the window felt far away, as if they were suspended between earth and sky, two souls floating in a cocoon of quiet. She asked softly, "Do you ever feel like this place exists outside of time?" Elias nodded. "Completely, like the rest of the world pauses when you walk through that door." There was a long silence after that, but it wasn't empty. It was alive with the sound of droplets, the hum of air, the beating of hearts at peace. After breakfast, the spa attendant left a small message card on their tray. In delicate handwriting, it read, "For guests of the private sanctuary, morning mist meditation begins at the forest deck, 8 o'clock a.m. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Forest deck," Amara smiled. "Let's go. Maybe the rain will join us." They walked together down the quiet hallway, their footsteps muffled by soft mats and wood. The path curved outward into an open-air deck surrounded by mist and dripping leaves. Cushions were placed in a semicircle and faint incense smoke coiled upward into the morning air. The guide greeted them with a serene smile. "Welcome. Today we breathe with the rain." They sat side by side, eyes closed as the session began. The instructor's voice was gentle, rhythmic. "Listen not to the sound, but to the space between the sounds. That's where stillness lives." Amara inhaled deeply. The air was cool and damp, tasting faintly of pine and rain. Each drop that fell nearby sounded distinct, one landing on a leaf, one hitting wood, one merging with the puddle at her feet. She could hear her heartbeat slowing, her mind unspooling from the tangles of the week. Every exhale carried something away. When she opened her eyes, Elias was still serene. His expression had softened into something childlike, unguarded, peaceful. For a brief moment, she imagined what it would be like to paint this moment. The mist, the calm, the echo of two souls rediscovering quiet together. After the session, they lingered on the deck as the others drifted away. The rain had thinned to a faint drizzle now, and sunlight pressed shyly through the clouds. Elias leaned against the railing, looking out at the forest. "You know," he said, "I think I understand why I stopped coming here." Amara turned to him. "Why?" he exhaled. "Because I didn't want to face what peace reminded me of." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. The rain tapped lightly on the railing as though urging him to speak. "When life gets loud, you can hide in the noise. You can convince yourself you're okay because there's no space to feel otherwise. But when it gets quiet, like this, you hear everything you've been running from." Amara was silent for a long moment. Then she said softly, "I think that's why I came back too." He looked at her, eyes warm with understanding. "What are you running from, Amara?" She smiled faintly. "Maybe the same thing. The version of myself that forgot how to rest." Elias nodded slowly. "Then maybe we're both learning again." They stood together, watching the mist move through the trees. It was strange how something so simple, rain, silence, breath, could feel like healing. Back in the sanctuary suite, Amara found a sketchpad placed neatly on the table. It hadn't been there before. A note rested on top of it, written in the same graceful hand. "Art materials are available for your creative reflection. Sometimes peace finds its shape through your hands." Elias raised an eyebrow when he saw it. "Well, that's suspiciously perfect timing." Amara smiled softly, tracing the edge of the sketchbook. "Maybe the spa listens." Maybe it does, he said, settling into a chair nearby. She sat by the window, opening the pad. The paper was thick, smooth, inviting. For a long time she just looked at it, unsure where to begin. Then, as if guided by something beyond thought, she began to draw. The mist outside, the faint outline of trees, the reflection of candlelight on the glass. Elias watched quietly, his expression unreadable but tender. When she finally stopped, he said softly, "You still draw like you're dreaming." She smiled without looking up. "Maybe I am." That night, as the rain began again, soft, slow, endless, they sat beside the warm pool, their reflections rippling in the water. Amara spoke quietly. "Elias, do you ever wonder if places remember us? Like this spa, maybe it keeps a little piece of everyone who's ever needed peace." He tilted his head thoughtfully. "If it does, then we're part of its heartbeat now." She looked at him, eyes reflecting the candlelight. "Maybe that's why it feels alive," he nodded. "Because we are." Outside, thunder rumbled faintly, distant, sleepy, as though even the storm had grown tired. They both fell silent again, letting the rhythm of water and rain blend into their breath. The spa lights dimmed, shadows deepening across the floor. Amara leaned back, her eyes fluttering closed. The air was warm, scented with lavender and rain. "I think," she whispered, "I could stay here forever." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe forever is just this, moments that ask for nothing." She nodded, her voice fading into the quiet. "Then this is enough." And for the first time in a long time, it truly was. When the rain begins to rest by morning, the rain had grown quiet. The forest no longer whispered in waves, it breathed in stillness. Dew clung to every leaf, turning the garden outside the spa into a world of crystal and light. A few rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, soft and hesitant, as if they too had forgotten how to shine after so many hours of gray. Inside the private sanctuary, everything smelled of renewal, fresh towels, jasmine water, and the faint sweetness of morning tea. Amara stood near the window, watching droplets slide down the last traces of rain. She could hear the faint sound of chimes drifting from the courtyard. For the first time in days, the sound felt like awakening instead of echo. Elias entered quietly, holding 2 cups of steaming tea. His robe sleeves were rolled up, his hair still damp from a shower. "Chamomile and rose," he said softly. "Your favorite if I remember right." She smiled, taking the cup. "You remember too much." "I remember the calm things," he said. "The world gives you enough noise. You hold on to the quiet where you can." They stood side by side for a while, sipping their tea and watching sunlight melt through the mist. The air felt cleaner somehow, and though the storm had ended, the quiet rhythm of the rain seemed to linger, like a memory that refused to fade. Later that morning, the spa attendants arranged a forest walk for the few guests still staying in the private wing. The trail curved gently along a stream, stones slick with rain, the air cool and fragrant. Amara and Elias walked behind the group, their footsteps soft on the moss-covered path. Every so often, she would pause just to breathe it all in. The wet bark, the hum of distant birds, the feeling of life unfolding quietly all around. "I missed this," she said softly. "I didn't even realize how much." Elias looked at her. "You mean the quiet," she nodded, "and space, and air. Everything feels slower here, like it forgives you for rushing." He smiled faintly. "Maybe that's what real peace is, not escape, just forgiveness." Amara glanced at him, her heart stirring. "You always did have the right words." He shook his head gently. "Number just better silence." She laughed softly. The sound blended into the forest as naturally as wind through leaves. The path led them to a clearing where the stream widened into a small pool. The guide encouraged them to sit, to listen. The group scattered, some meditating, others dipping their fingers in the cold, clear water. Amara crouched near the edge, tracing circles across the surface. Elias watched her for a while before sitting beside her. "You ever think," she murmured, "that water remembers too? Every raindrop that ever fell ends up back here somehow." Elias nodded slowly. "Maybe that's why it's so calm. It's already been everywhere. It doesn't need to rush anymore." She smiled, eyes fixed on the rippling water. "Then maybe we're all learning to be like water." He looked at her, his voice gentle. "I think you already are." Amara turned toward him then, really seeing him. His face was calm but lined with traces of old exhaustion, years of trying to be strong, steady, dependable. She realized how long it had been since she'd seen anyone look so simply present. The silence between them was deep. The forest seemed to listen. Then she asked softly, "Did you ever think we'd end up here again? After all this time?" Elias' eyes drifted toward the water. "No, but maybe we were meant to. The last time we said goodbye, I don't think we really meant it. Maybe the rain decided to finish the conversation for us." Amara laughed quietly, though her throat felt tight. "You think the rain plans things?" "I think peace does," he said, "and rain's just its messenger." Her laughter faded into a smile, soft, real. "Then maybe I should have listened sooner." He turned to her, his voice low. "You're listening now." And for a long while, that was enough. When they returned to the spa, the air had grown warm and golden. The staff had opened the large windows in the main hall, letting the scent of wet earth drift through the corridors. Guests moved quietly, robes swaying softly as they passed, each carrying their own small piece. Elias and Amara found themselves back in their private suite, sitting by the pool again. The candlelight flickered in the corners, though the afternoon sun was still bright enough to paint gold across the floor. Amara took out her sketchbook, flipping through pages of her new drawings, the forest mist, the reflections, even Elias' profile sketched in soft charcoal lines. He looked over her shoulder, smiling faintly. "You made me look too calm." She glanced at him. "That's because you were," he chuckled. "Then you must have caught me at the right time." Amara studied the sketch for a moment. "Maybe I drew what I wanted to see." Their eyes met, and the room seemed to still around them. The hum of water, the breeze from the open skylight, even the faint sound of birds outside. In that quiet, nothing needed to be said. That evening, the spa held a closing ritual for guests departing the next morning, a ceremony of stillness. Candles lined the central pool, their flames mirrored endlessly across the water. The attendants moved slowly, carrying bowls of scented steam and petals. Each guest was invited to release a floating candle into the pool and silently let go of one thing they no longer wished to carry. Amara stood at the edge, her hands trembling slightly around the small candle. The surface of the water shimmered, reflecting hundreds of tiny stars. She closed her eyes. In her heart, she whispered, "Let me remember calm. Let me forgive the noise I let in." When she set the candle afloat, it drifted slowly toward the center, joining the others until the whole pool looked like a constellation of peace. Elias stepped beside her, his own candle in hand. "What did you let go?" he asked quietly. She smiled softly. "Everything that wasn't gentle." He nodded, then released his candle beside hers. "What about you?" she asked. He exhaled, watching the tiny light drift away. The need to hold everything together. Their candles floated side by side, spinning slowly in the warm water. For a moment, it looked like they were orbiting each other, two small stars moving toward the same calm. When the ceremony ended, they lingered long after the others had gone. The spa had grown silent again, the kind of silence that fills the heart instead of the room. Amara leaned her head on Elia's shoulder. You think this place will remember us, she murmured. He smiled. It already does. And what if we forget? He looked down at her, eyes soft as rainlight. Then maybe the next time it rains, it'll remind us. She closed her eyes, listening to the faint echo of water and wind. The storm had passed, but its voice remained, gentle, endless, true. The last morning of rain, the morning came softly, like a whisper through an open window. For the first time in days, the sky was no longer gray. It was pale gold, brushed with faint streaks of pink and silver. The rain had stopped completely, leaving only a damp hush over the forest. Every surface gleamed with morning light. Amara woke to that silence. It was strange, she thought, how she'd grown used to the rain's voice, its endless murmur, its patient rhythm. Without it, the world felt almost too quiet. She lay there for a moment, eyes open, letting the stillness settle inside her. Across the room, Elias was packing his small bag. He moved slowly, almost reluctantly, as though every motion carried the weight of goodbye. "You're up early," Amara said softly, her voice still wrapped in sleep. He turned and smiled faintly. "Couldn't sleep, the silence woke me." She sat up, drawing her robe around her shoulders. "It's strange, isn't it? When the storm ends, you almost miss the sound." Elias nodded. "Maybe peace is easier to hear when it rains." Amara watched him quietly. The light caught the edge of his face, turning his profile into something half dream, half memory. "You're leaving today," she said. He paused, then nodded. "The retreat ends this morning. They asked if I wanted to extend, but," he hesitated, "I think part of peace is learning when to let go." She smiled softly, though her chest ached a little. "And you're good at that," he laughed quietly. "No, but maybe I'm learning." Amara looked out the window where mist was still lifting from the forest floor. "It doesn't feel real, does it, all of this? The rain, the calm, the quiet." "It is real," Elias said gently. "It's just rare, and that makes it easy to forget." He came to stand beside her, both of them gazing out at the trees. The sound of dripping water still echoed faintly from the leaves, a slow farewell from the rain. After breakfast, the spa attendants came to prepare the suite. Their movements were soft, respectful, as if aware that the space itself was sacred. Amara lingered near the pool one last time. The candles had burned down to tiny pools of wax, and the scent of lavender still hung faintly in the air. She knelt beside the water, touching its surface with her fingertips. "Thank you," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was speaking to the spa, the rain, or something deeper inside herself. Elias appeared at the doorway, his bag slung over his shoulder. "Ready?" she nodded, rising slowly. "As I'll ever be." They walked through the quiet halls together. The staff bowed politely, their smiles serene, their eyes kind. The glass doors at the end of the corridor opened with a soft sigh, and beyond them the world waited. The air outside was cool and bright, the smell of rain still lingering in the earth. Birds were beginning to sing again, hesitant at first, then stronger, as if remembering how. Amara turned back for one last look. The private spa sanctuary stood nestled among the trees, its roof still shining with moisture, its windows reflecting light like mirrors of peace. "It feels like leaving a dream," she said. Elias followed her gaze. "Maybe that's what dreams are for, to remind us how real peace can feel." She looked at him, smiling softly. "And what if we forget?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a folded piece of parchment. He placed it in her hand. "What's this?" she asked. "Something the spa gave me years ago," he said, "when I first came here. I kept it all this time. It's a reminder." She unfolded it carefully. The words, written in elegant script, read, "Peace is not a place you find, it's the quiet you choose to carry." Amara looked up at him, eyes glistening. "You're giving this to me?" He smiled faintly. "I think you'll need it more. She held the paper close to her heart. "Then I'll carry it." Elias nodded. "And when it rains again, remember this place. Remember what the silence sounded like." The taxi that would take them back to the city waited quietly by the gate. They walked toward it together, the gravel soft beneath their feet. The sun broke fully through the clouds, scattering light across the trees. Before getting in, Amara turned once more toward the sanctuary. The wind carried a faint scent of eucalyptus, and rain the same scent that had greeted her the first night she arrived. "I think it remembers us," she said quietly. Elias smiled. "It always will." They exchanged a final, wordless look, something that said thank you, something that said until next time. Then the car door closed, and the road curved gently away from the valley. Through the window, Amara watched the forest fade, the sanctuary hidden once more behind the rain-wet trees. She opened her palm, unfolding the small parchment again, and whispered the words under her breath. "Peace is the quiet I choose to carry." The car drove on. The clouds drifted apart, and somewhere far behind them, the rain began again, soft, tender, endless. The sound of quiet in the city was never truly quiet. It hummed, breathed, and pulsed with a rhythm all its own, cars sliding through wet streets, footsteps echoing in corridors, voices rising and fading like waves. Yet when Amara stepped out of the taxi that first morning back, she noticed something different. The noise no longer felt like chaos. It felt distant, as though some invisible layer now stood between her and the rush, softening the edges of everything. She walked slowly through the glass doors of her apartment building, her shoes still damp from the rain. The lobby smelled faintly of coffee and rainwater, two scents that always reminded her of home. But today, she felt the space in the air, the pause between elevator dings, the hush before a door closed, the faint rhythm of her own breathing. It was all there, small, delicate pieces of calm, waiting to be noticed. Her apartment greeted her the same way she'd left it, neat, functional, but empty in the way that city spaces often are. The faint hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. She set her bag down and opened the curtains. From her high window, the skyline stretched endlessly, skyscrapers gleaming with reflections of fading rain clouds. Down below, umbrellas bloomed like petals across the streets. Amara stood there for a long time just listening. The city's sounds weren't the same as the forest, but they carried a rhythm all their own, a song of motion and life. And somewhere within that song, she found the same stillness she had felt at the spa. That evening, after unpacking, she filled her bathtub halfway and added a few drops of lavender oil, the same scent the spa had used in its candlelight pools. Steam began to rise. The air grew thick and warm. She dimmed the lights, put her phone away, and closed her eyes. At first, her thoughts rushed in: plans, deadlines, messages waiting, 1,000 small demands calling for attention. But then, like waves meeting the shore, they began to retreat. In their place came memory, the sound of rain on the sanctuary roof, the voice of Elias saying softly, "Peace is the quiet you choose to carry." She smiled. The water lapped gently against her skin, echoing the rhythm of the forest stream. For the first time in years, she wasn't bathing to cleanse or rushing through routine. She was simply being. In the days that followed, Amara noticed the calm showing up in unexpected places. At work, when conversations turned loud or stressful, she found herself pausing, breathing, letting her mind drift for just a moment to that image of candles floating across still water. The tension in her chest would ease. Her words would soften, and slowly, without trying, others around her began to mirror that calm. In the evenings, she would walk home through the park instead of taking the subway. Even the city rain felt different now, not an inconvenience, but a reminder. She would tilt her umbrella just enough to hear the sound of the drops against the fabric, soft, steady, soothing. People hurried past, chasing time, but she simply walked, slow, deliberate, peaceful. Sometimes she caught herself smiling for no reason at all. One night after a long day, Amara opened her window to let in the cool November air. The city lights shimmered like small stars. Far below, she could hear the faint echo of rain beginning again, slow, gentle, patient. She turned off the lights and sat by the window, a cup of chamomile tea in her hands. The reflection of the sky filled the glass, dark and endless, but comforting. And for the first time since leaving the sanctuary, she realized something. The peace hadn't stayed behind. It had followed her home. The spa had not just been a place, it had been a mirror, showing her what already existed within her all along. Amara reached for her sketchbook, flipping to a blank page. In calm strokes, she began to draw not the spa, not Elias, not the rain, but the city itself, bathed in quiet light. On the bottom of the page, she wrote one simple line: "Peace lives where you decide to listen." She placed the drawing on her bedside table, blew out the candle beside her tea, and lay down. Outside, the rain continued its slow, gentle song, a lullaby for a city that rarely slept. But Amara did, peacefully. The letter beneath the rain, 2 weeks had passed since Amara's return. The rhythm of the city had folded her back in emails, calls, the clatter of mornings. But beneath it all, the quiet from the sanctuary remained, like a soft pulse beneath her every breath. It was on a Sunday afternoon, while the clouds began to gather again over the skyline, that a small envelope arrived at her door. No sender's name, only her address written in careful handwriting she instantly recognized. Elias. She carried the envelope to her table, the rain already beginning to tap against the window, faint, familiar, rhythmic. She smiled before she even opened it. Inside was a single sheet of cream paper, faintly scented with eucalyptus and tea leaves. His words flowed in a gentle script, calm and unhurried. "Amara, the rain returned this morning. I thought of the sanctuary and somehow of you. After leaving, I went north, another retreat, quieter, older, set deep in the mountains. The people here believe every storm is a teacher, and that silence isn't the absence of sound, but the space where truth echoes. Yesterday, as I sat by a lake, I heard that same stillness we found together, the one that felt alive. I realized it wasn't the place that gave it to us. It was what we allowed inside ourselves. You once asked if the sanctuary would remember us. I think it will, but only because we remember it. Peace continues wherever we let it breathe. I hope you're listening to the rain again tonight. Not for me, but for yourself. If someday the world becomes loud again, and it will close your eyes, you'll hear it, the sound of quiet waiting for you beneath everything. Until the next rain, Amara sat there for a long while, her fingertips resting on the letter. Outside, the rain had deepened, washing over the city in silver sheets. It felt as though the sky itself had chosen this moment to speak. She rose, opened the window, and let the cool air drift in. The scent of wet earth and distant lightning filled the room. And in that moment, she did what she always did at the sanctuary. She breathed deeply, letting peace settle where it belonged. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "I remember." That night, Amara placed the letter beside her sketchbook. Then, on a fresh page, she drew the outline of 2 candles floating on calm water. Their light reflected perfectly, as if the world itself was holding its breath. At the bottom, she wrote the final words that had lingered since that first night in the spa. "The rain will return, but so will the quiet. Peace is the sound beneath it all." She closed the book. The rain outside softened into a steady lullaby. The city lights flickered like distant stars, and in that calm, Amara finally drifted to sleep, not dreaming of the sanctuary anymore, but dreaming as the sanctuary itself. Somewhere far away in the valley of eucalyptus trees, the private spa sanctuary stood silent under another midnight rain. And if you listened closely, you might swear the water carried a whisper, soft, eternal and true. Peace is the quiet you choose to carry. End of story.